Grass-covered snow glimmers underneath the light of a street lamp. Fog settles over the desolate neighborhood. Branches slightly sway to the motion of a chilly breeze, white powder blowing across the street, just as a shadow appears. It moves underneath the illumination of the lamps, yet there is not a soul in sight. The only sound that can be heard, aside from the occasional barking of a homeowner's dog and the meow of a stray cat, is the ringing of sleigh bells. The shadow disappears under the sound of someone talking to themselves. A lone woman walks down the dusted-over sidewalk. Shoulder-length hair whips in the wind as she wraps her scarf tighter around her neck. She shoves her hands into her pockets of her coat. However, the weather is much too harsh. The area around her is much too quiet. She cautiously glances around when the bells start to ring again. "Hello?" she calls out. The woman crooks her head to the side when she notices a figure standing a distance in front of her. The woman slows to a halt. Her body tenses up and her eyes widen as she takes in the appearance of the figure standing just ahead. Her face drains of all color. The person standing on the sidewalk disappears into thin air, causing the woman to shake her head. She must be hallucinating. Something warm blows against her hair before she is knocked to the ground. A large, black hand wraps around a pale throat, skinny fingers digging in just enough to cut off some of the airflow. The woman gasps for air while staring out into the darkening world. The coldness faded long ago. However, the friction of a hacksaw rapidly moving back and forth warms the woman's throat. Blood dribbles down the woman's chin as she attempts to scream for help, but only the sound of gargling is heard. The woman dares to look into the eyes of her attacker. Her gaze is one of fright. The whites of her eyes turn red, while the brown irises glaze over. Brunette hair is stained crimson as the vicious attacker licks his grotesque lips.
"Christmas is my favorite time of year,"
the attacker amusingly chuckles. Mid-afternoon sunlight beats down on a shingled roof of an older house. It looks more like 100 years old, yet somehow seems newer. Black paint is peeling off the rotting wood. Shutters, hanging by mere hinges, are beside cracked and dust-covered windows. The ebony wood of the porch has fallen in. Shards of wood stick up into the air as if to protect the house from intruders. One man and woman are walking down the sidewalk opposite to the house, their fingers entwined as they stride alongside each other. The couple slows to a stop when they notice a silhouette of a small child in the attic window. They're not able to see anything over the pale blue stare of the child. The dead gaze causes a shiver to run down their spines. "Let's hurry up and go," the woman says. "I'm not scared." The man shakes his head. "That's Estelle Manor. We shouldn't even be on the sidewalk." "There's nothing to be afraid of. You act as if we should be in fear." "Do you not remember?" The man lowers his head. Shame shows upon his face. Faint voices whispering within his ear as he raises his head once more. The shame, once shown, disappears entirely as if it didn't exist. "Of course I do. But you only fear what has already been handled." The woman reluctantly nodded to him before they continued down the snow-covered sidewalk. The sun itself couldn't melt the white, which brightened the gray. The man, as he walked, could still feel the eerie stare the child gave. It crept upon him as the whispers continued to get louder within his ears. Looking back once more, the child was gone. "Damned spirits," he said, before walking once more. He slowed to a halt as the sound of bells could be heard. The woman looked at him confused, curious. She poked him from behind. "What is it?" she asked curiously. "Didn't you hear that?" "Bells," he responded. "No, maybe you're hearing things." "Perhaps. Ears have been giving me some trouble for a while now." Another step forward. Another bell rings. Beside them was an alleyway, nothing but a path that led to another street. Houses separated, fences surrounding their backyards. Dogs barked as much as kids laughed and played. These bells outlined themselves far more than any sound. They jingled as they came forward with the light of the sun, gleaming their gold color. A figure within a large red robe, breathing heavy as he approached. Chains dragged against the snow, leaving the brown of rust behind it. The man stared as his chest tensed, not finding the words to speak. The figure stopped where it stood, continued to breathe heavily into the frozen air. The man couldn't find the motivation or the strength to move as he continued to stare at the horror in front of him. The woman, blinded away from the guilt the man had stored within him. "What's wrong? What do you see?" the woman asked worriedly. Do you not see that hideous beast?" he asked, while barely able to breathe. "Beast?" she asked with confusion sprouted upon her face. "The one of myths and legends, where we did with Daniel." Memories of dark origin filled within her mind as she stared down the alleyway. Whispers and the scream of a child made her fall to her knees as she covered her ears. They ringed of bells as they eventually stopped, causing her to look up and see the creature that broke into her nightmares. The beast laid down his red sack that he had carried upon his back, opening it widely, revealing what all seemed like a dark pit of darkness. Reaching in, a black thread wrapped around the skinny and pale skin. Realizing what was about to happen, the man mustered the strength and pushed the woman out of the way and out of view of the beast. "Run, Rach!" his voice quickly being interrupted as the black thread wrapped around his ankles and jerked him to the ground, pulling him towards the large open sack. Trying to grip onto anything under the snow, his nails continued to tear into pieces against the rocky surface. A line of red as he eventually was dragged into the sack. The woman's eyes widened as she quickly sat up and ran. The snow was slippery more than it was before, and found it more difficult to keep her balance. In front of Estelle Manor once again, she finally lost her balance, falling face first into the snow-covered sidewalk. Pain skilled her face, but the snow numbed it nearly instantly. Trying to find the strength to get back up, the sound of the bells rung within her ears once again. Steps could also be heard walking toward her as the snow was crunched when the figure stopped moving. Looking up, vision blurry, a hand reached out to her. As she reached for it, she felt the grasp on her wrist, claws digging into her skin. Before she could realize who it was, another hand wrapped around her neck, pushing it back with great force. The neck itself split open before she could give out a single peep. As her head hung from her back, barely able to latch onto the base where it once was, the beast dragged the body within its sack. Nothing of the couple remained, only the stains of red against the white of the snow. The bells continued their jingle as everything went silent. 3 people have met their demise by the hand of him. Now, only 2 more shall die before the night is complete. A child's voice says. The child sinks away from the window after watching the figure disappear from sight. A menacingly wicked smile rests on her lips, while the pale blue of her dead stare lightens just a shade. She seems rather pleased with the events that have occurred. However, her work is far from over. 2 more people will meet their dreadful fate. They will receive the punishment that are well deserved. The grandfather clock in the downstairs parlor of Estelle Manor begins to chime at the stroke of midnight. Moonlight peers into the non-shaded windows of the manor just as something loud hits the shingled roof. A woman springs upright in her bed upon hearing the loud noise. Her hand lands upon the man peacefully sleeping next to her. She forces her hand back and forth, causing the man to stir. The woman sighs in frustration as she hesitantly crawls out of bed, her bare feet hitting the cold, hardwood floor. Her body shivers due to the frigid air. She grabs her robe and quickly drapes it over her nightgown as she makes her way toward the door. A crash sounds downstairs, causing her to yank open the bedroom door, her head peering into the darkened hallway when her ears begin to throb. The ringing of bells are the only thing that the woman can hear as she creeps down the hallway. The door to her daughter's bedroom closed tightly. Her hand wraps around the old, golden handle of a candelabra. Her knuckles turn white from how strong her grip is, her feet slowly carrying her toward the grand staircase. One frigid foot lands on the first stair. Something firmly touches her shoulder and forcefully shoves. The woman's body tumbles down the stairs, hitting one at a time, her head bouncing off the hard wood, her body becoming broken and mangled. Yet she manages to screech, to cry out for help as she rolls and rolls down 3 flights. Her head hits the floor one final time as a fire poker pierces through the front of her chest. Blood drips down the iron handle as it exits the woman's back. Her once brown eyes cloud over as a large hand grabs a hold of her, dragging her now limp body toward the red sack sitting by the fireplace. "Charlotte, Georgia!" a man's voice hollers. "Down here, father," the child calls out. A man, no older than 40, quickly runs down the stairs, his expression frantic when he notices his wife's body resting beside the awful red sack. Georgia sits on the parlor room floor, a pleasant smile resting on her lips as she holds a neatly wrapped present in her hands. Red, blue, yellow, and green lights from the Christmas tree illuminate the otherwise dark room. Her father runs over to her, dropping onto his knees and wrapping her tightly in his arms. "Are you all right, honey?" the man questions. "May I open my present now?" Georgia inquires. The man pulled back, his green eyes full of worry, his lips part as if to answer her question. However, he's picked up from the floor by someone so strong. The man is lifted into the air while screaming for his daughter to run, yet she sits there, present in hand, a smile on her face and an expressionless gaze. The man's agonizing screams as the upper and lower halves of his body are slowly ripped apart, the sounds of bones cracking and flesh being torn apart echo throughout the rather large room. Blood is sprayed onto the walls, the ceiling, and even little Georgia. But alas, she remains still. Her attention solely focused on the creature behind it all. The upper half of her father is quickly chucked into the open sack, while the other half still remains in the figure's hand. The creature bends down, his free hand resting on little Georgia.
"You've done well, my child. I shall await the day that I may come and take you away,"
the creature says. "Thank you, Krampus." Georgia enthusiastically smiles. Krampus removes his hand from the little girl's head. The lower half of her father is shoved into the old, dirty red sack before it's hoisted over the creature's right shoulder. Krampus glances down at the child once more, her happy little smile somehow causes her own lip to twitch. Bells ring with every step that he takes away from the child and her manner of solitude. The creature claws his way up the length of the fireplace until he is atop the roof once more. The sleigh bells stop ringing, just as a voice is faintly heard in the wind.
I wish with all my heart,
another child says,
that the truly evil shall be torn apart.